There was a startling revelation in today's budget about the number of people on social grants. Almost 50% of the South African population now receiving some sort of social grant. That's one of the sobering revelations in today's midterm budget policy statement announced by the Finance Minister. Of course, the midterm or the medium-term budget policy statement outlines expenditure plans for the next 3 years rather than specific allocations or specific tax hikes or cuts or anything like that. To discuss, we're joined by Associate Professor at the Centre for Social Development in Africa, Lauren Graham. Professor Graham, thank you for being with us. So, there's some money set aside to ensure that the COVID-19, the 350 Rand sort of continues, but I don't think he fully addressed the expectation from many that that will become permanent, that there will be a permanent social grant for the unemployed, and also not much about the family grant. Was there enough detail for you?
Well, I actually think it was quite positive that he didn't say too much about the family grant. I think it's quite contentious at this point. It still needs some planning and thinking through. The Treasury statement that was put out just before the medium-term budget speech suggested that he was going to table a family grant, and there was quite a lot of anxiety around that and challenges to that because many in civil society felt that it was a step back from our current COVID grant. And there are a number of other challenges with the family grant. I do think that it is a positive thing. I think we do need to acknowledge what a big step this is for the Treasury even to have tabled a proposal for a family grant, because this is the first time that we're really seeing a permanent grant being made available to people who are should be in the labour market. And it's a real acknowledgement of the high levels of unemployment, structural unemployment and poverty in this country. Yeah. But it does fall short on a number of factors that we can discuss.
Well, please reveal what those factors are. So this would be the replacement for the 350 Rand grant, but you mentioned that some people believe it would be a step backwards. Why? Professor, are you still with us?
Can you hear me? Sorry, I seem to have had an issue with my connection.
Yeah, we couldn't hear you, Professor. I was asking you to explain. Thanks for coming back. I was asking you to explain why a family grant, why some believe it could be a step backwards and it's not being dealt with properly at the moment. What would you like to see?
Sure. So the family grant, as it is tabled in the Treasury report, seems to look at a single, the grant going to a household, not to an individual. That is a problem in the sense that our administrative systems for grants are actually set up for individual payments, and how we would track who belongs to what households, particularly since we have such high mobility amongst households, would be incredibly difficult, and a lot of costs going into changing our administrative system. The tabled proposal is also looking at families or households that are below the food poverty line. So a number of the people who are receiving the SRD grant at the moment are actually above the food poverty line, but perhaps below the lower or upper bound poverty line. And the food poverty line is an extreme poverty line. We're also not clear in the current statement whether the family grant would be paid, whether it's a single grant of 460 Rand that goes to the household, or whether it would be a number of an amount that is 460 per adult person in the household. The modelling suggests that it should be per person in the household, but the tabled report suggests otherwise. So it's not clear at the moment. So it seems to be quite a step back from what we're currently sitting with the COVID SRD grant. We know that an extension of the COVID SRD grant or making it permanent has budget implications and affordability implications, but I do think there are other compromises that could be reached that would be more progressive than the current Treasury statement on the family grant.
All right, then if we look at I mean, it's staggering. I think the figure is 47% of South African adults receiving some sort of grant. That's almost half the population. And there are two schools of thought. We've been lauded for the social grants, for the way it's been rolled out, keeping many from starvation, in fact. Others say we are making people reliant. We should look at economic growth, and not just the handouts. Do you think government is getting the balance right, given where we are, which is just incredibly dire?
Look, I think there's this false debate between whether we have economic stimulus or social protection, and it's not one or the other. We absolutely have to have both. We can't be extending social protection and not doing anything about the dire state of unemployment in this country. But we also cannot continue with these high levels of structural unemployment. And our research shows that there are, in fact, benefits to social protection. We see amongst many grant beneficiaries that they're using it to stimulate livelihood activities in ways that they call growing the grant. One of our PhD students talks about growing the grant. And so it's really not either or, they're connected. We also know how high costs of work seeking are. And in some of our research on youth unemployment, we see young people having to make decisions between, do we spend money on food or do we go out looking for work? And so having the grants in place is crucial as a baseline for people to actually go out and look for work, or to start their own small livelihood strategies. So it's really not either or. We have
and I'm glad you brought that up, because it costs money to sometimes get into a taxi, go to an interview, go to a postnet, do what you got to do just to go and get a job. You need money in the first place. So this COVID-19 relief grant keeps on being extended. Now talk of the family grant. Do you think we will have something concrete on the table by February?
That seems to be the proposal in the medium-term budget speech. Whether that happens or not, who can say? But I do think that we have some very concrete proposals on the table that require a little more debate before we can put something forward in the next budget speech. I would really hope to see that happen. I think it's high time it happens, and this uncertainty that so many grant recipients are living with, is it going to stop after March next year, just can't continue.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Associate Professor at the Centre for Social Development in Africa, Lauren Graham.